Last night, Kyiv awoke to a sound that's become tragically familiar, yet always, always terrifying. The roar of explosions. A powerful missile strike tore through a housing block, just shattering homes and lives. The city, which has endured so much already, found itself once again at the brutal epicenter of a relentless assault. So today we're taking a deep dive into these recent widespread attacks on Ukraine's capital. We've pulled together insights from Reuters, the Washington Post, the Times, Al Jazeera, CBS News, PBS, and various first-hand accounts, really trying to understand the events on the ground, the devastating human cost, and what these strikes signify for global peace efforts. Our goal here is really to cut through the noise, the sort of overwhelming amount of information, give you a clear, comprehensive picture so you can walk away truly well-informed about this unfolding crisis. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, and what's crucial to grasp here, I think, is that even in a conflict already defined by just persistent violence, this particular barrage of strikes, it really stands out. This wasn't just another day of shelling. It felt different. It was a highly concentrated, massive assault executed with, it seems, a clear intent to inflict maximum damage and maybe send a very specific message as well. Understanding the sheer scale and the types of targets involved is just essential, not only for comprehending the immediate tragedy, right, but for recognizing how these actions ripple outwards, how they profoundly shape international diplomacy and, well, future responses. These aren't just isolated acts. They feel like strategic moves with these really far-reaching consequences that demand our careful analysis. What's fascinating here is the timing, perhaps.
Absolutely. The timing, the scale. And it's in those stark facts that we begin to grasp the sheer audacity of this assault. Imagine, if you can, just the scale of what unfolded. Russia launched a truly massive combined attack, unleashing an astonishing 598 drones and 31 missiles, every single one targeting Ukraine. And as reports from multiple sources tragically confirm, Kyiv bore the absolute brunt of this onslaught.
Almost 600 aerial threats.
Exactly. Nearly 600 aerial threats in a single night. It just makes you immediately wonder, how could any defense system possibly cope with that kind of deluge? Here's where it gets really interesting. How did Ukraine's defenses respond to something of this magnitude? What happened when those drones and missiles filled the skies over Ukraine?
Well, it's an almost unimaginable challenge, isn't it? And what's really remarkable, actually, is the vigor of Ukraine's air defense response. They reported shooting down an incredible number, 563 drones and 26 of those 31 missiles.
Wow, that's a huge percentage.
It is an astonishing success rate against such a volume of incoming fire. However, and this is where the nuance becomes absolutely critical, even with such a high interception rate, the sheer volume of projectiles effectively guarantees devastation. It's not just a grim statistic. It highlights a critical vulnerability in urban defense, that even near perfect interception still leaves this terrifying margin for error.
Right, because even the debris.
Exactly. Think about it. Debris from intercepted missiles or drones can cause immense damage when it falls onto residential areas. It has mass, it has velocity, and tragically, despite their best efforts, some direct hits still occurred, leading to, well, devastating consequences on the ground. If we connect this to the bigger picture, when you throw that many projectiles at a city, some will inevitably get through or cause significant harm even when they're stopped midair. It speaks volumes about the immense challenges of protecting civilian populations in modern warfare.
You're absolutely right. It's such a sobering reality that even a robust defense can still mean utter catastrophe for those below. And that brings us directly to the profound human impact of these attacks. We're talking about more than just numbers on a report. These are lives shattered, families torn apart. The statistics are truly heartbreaking. At least 10 lives claimed, including a child, with 38 people injured across 7 city districts. That's according to Reuters, CBS News, WPTZ.
And some reports suggested even higher numbers initially, didn't they?
Yes, exactly. Al Jazeera reported higher figures, at least 15 fatalities, among them 4 children, with dozens more wounded. And they noted that those figures were still expected to rise as rescue efforts continued. You know how it is in these situations. Imagine the visceral terror. A missile striking a residential building in the Donetsk district, collapsing the entire structure, trapping civilians under tons of rubble. Just think about being in your home when that happens, a distant rumble suddenly becoming the end of everything.
It's truly an unimaginable horror. And the tragedy of civilian casualties, particularly children, it just reinforces the brutal, indiscriminate reality of this conflict. These aren't abstract numbers. They represent immense personal loss, suffering. What's more, these specific instances of residential destruction, like that 5-story building collapse you mentioned in Donetsk, They serve as these stark daily reminders of the war's relentless impact on ordinary Ukrainians. Beyond the immediate physical damage and loss of life, we also have to consider the psychological toll, right? The social toll of living under constant threat.
The trauma.
The lingering trauma, the displacement, the complete disruption of daily life. These are long-term wounds. They're far harder to quantify, but are deeply felt throughout society, shaping generations. This raises an important question about the resilience, but also the deep scarring of a population under siege. It's the firefighters sifting through dust, the grieving families waiting amid wreckage. These are the images that really underscore the gravity of what we're discussing.
Yeah. And as if the immediate human tragedy wasn't enough, these attacks also carried significant symbolic weight. They caused deep diplomatic damage, too. Beyond the direct human suffering, these strikes also seemed aimed at the very institutions of international cooperation. It wasn't just random buildings hit. Several high-profile sites were damaged. We're talking about the EU delegation building, the British Council offices, other cultural institutions as well. These are places that represent international presence, cooperation, culture. So what does this all mean for international relations? What does it tell us when such prominent symbolic targets are intentionally hit in a capital city?
Well, what's fascinating here is precisely how specific targets can swiftly escalate diplomatic responses. The damage to the EU delegation building and the British Council offices, it wasn't seen as accidental collateral. It was widely interpreted, I think it's fair to say, as a direct challenge to the international community and its presence, its support in Ukraine. This symbolic significance immediately sparked widespread international condemnation. You saw it almost instantly.
Right, the reaction was very quick.
Very quick and very forceful. European leaders responded. The EU, for instance, took the pretty unusual step of summoning the Russian ambassador. That's a significant diplomatic rebuke. Meanwhile, you had figures like Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission, and French President Emmanuel Macron. They didn't mince words. They denounced the attack as terroristic, barbaric, strong language. Even in the UK, Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer condemned the bombing, explicitly calling Putin out for sabotaging peace. Hannah, these are not just statements, are they? They are clear signals of outrage and perhaps a hardening of international positions. It demonstrates that such actions have immediate, tangible diplomatic repercussions.
That level of international condemnation is certainly not something to ignore, no. And it immediately puts the spotlight on Ukraine's direct response and its urgent call for global action. President Zelensky seized the moment, didn't he? Made it unequivocally clear that Moscow had chosen violence over diplomacy, insisting that for every strike, Moscow must feel the consequences. Strong words. And he wasn't just making a general plea. He specifically demanded new, tougher international sanctions. And notably, he urged stronger stances from two particular countries, China and Hungary. That was interesting.
Yes, very specific.
Now, this attack came amid ongoing international diplomatic efforts, right? Including U.S.-led peace overtures, which had even followed a Trump-Putin meeting. So here's where it gets really interesting. Considering all of this, how do these attacks affect the delicate balance of ongoing peace talks? And what's the strategic significance behind specifically calling out China and Hungary?
Well, these strikes profoundly underscore the inherent fragility, really, of any international diplomatic efforts in this conflict. It's just laid bare. Such aggressive actions seem almost designed sometimes to undermine the very foundation of peace talks. They make genuine dialogue incredibly difficult. It forces a stark choice, doesn't it? Either negotiate under the constant shadow of continued violence or double down on punitive measures. There's not much middle ground there.
A terrible choice.
A terrible choice. And this isn't just an isolated incident. It's a piece of a larger geopolitical puzzle. Zelensky's specific call for China and Hungary to take tougher stances. That's deeply strategic. You're right to point it out. China holds immense economic and geopolitical leverage globally, right? Its position significantly influences international dynamics and, crucially, Russia's calculus. Hungary, on the other hand, has often maintained a more, shall we say, ambivalent stance towards Russia within the EU, sometimes appearing to soften sanctions or resist stronger collective measures.
Right, they've been an outlier at times.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So by singling them out, Zelensky is pressing for a more unified, a more forceful international front. He's aiming to close any perceived cracks in global solidarity against the aggression. We connect this to the bigger picture. These strikes aren't just military actions. They are strategic moves designed to influence diplomatic leverage, shift international perception, and potentially derail any momentum toward a peaceful resolution. They're a stark, brutal reminder of the immense challenges in achieving a lasting peace when one party continues to pursue aggressions so openly.
What an incredibly complex and, frankly, heartbreaking situation. This deep dive has really laid bare the immense scale of this latest Russian assault on Kyiv. We detailed the almost 600 drones and 31 missiles, and Ukraine's vigorous but still tragically insufficient defense against that sheer volume. We've explored the profound human toll with at least 10, possibly 15 lives claimed, including children, and the utterly devastating impact on residential areas like Donetsk. It's awful. We also examined the symbolic damage to key diplomatic institutions, the EU delegation, British consul offices, and the swift, fiery international condemnation that followed. And finally, we look at President Ski's firm stance, his call for tougher sanctions against Moscow, specifically targeting China and Hungary, and how these attacks jeopardize the already fragile international diplomatic efforts. Our aim, as always, was to provide you with a clearer, more insightful understanding of a complex and devastating event, cutting through the noise to give you the essential insights.
And I suppose, as Kyiv mourns its losses and searches through the debris, the world watches and wonders. It's a question hanging in the air. Is this strike merely another brutal echo in the nightmare of continued war? Or could this level of outrage, this kind of symbolic attack, finally push the world toward more decisive, meaningful diplomacy? It's a crucial question, I think, for all of us to consider. We'd encourage you, the listener, to continue to critically engage with these global events, to reflect on this intricate, often painful interplay between military action and diplomatic efforts. What are the true enduring costs here? And what are the realistic paths forward for lasting peace, if any exist right now? It's something we all need to keep thinking about.